In just the first 90 days of 2026, the digital world got absolutely slammed with a wave of new security threats. And the sheer number of them, it's staggering. It really signals a major shift in how we need to think about cyber risk. So let's break down what's really going on here. Now, everything we're about to dive into is based on the Q1 2026 trend analysis published by our friends over at NURICAPS on YouTube. We're going to walk you through all their most important findings. So just how big are we talking? Well, in the first quarter of 2026 alone, a whopping 13,915 new common vulnerabilities and exposures, you know them as CVEs, were made public. To put that in perspective, that's a new potential threat being discovered roughly every 10 minutes. Wild. But listen, it's not just the sheer number that's concerning, it's how severe they are. For the first time in history, the combined total of high and critical risk vulnerabilities actually crossed the 50% mark. That means over half of all the new flaws we found were serious enough to cause some real, significant damage. Okay, so let's dig into how we even got to this point. In this first part, we're going to break down these numbers and really see just how fast this tide of threats is coming in. To really get a handle on the risk, we use something called the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, or CVSS. It's the global standard for this stuff, scoring threats on a scale from 0 to 10. The main thing to remember is this: anything that scores a 7.0 or higher, well, that falls into that high or critical category, and those are the ones you really have to worry about. And you can see the trend so clearly just within the quarter. I mean, we saw a steady climb from January to February, and then bam! A massive surge to over 5,600 new vulnerabilities in March alone. This isn't just a random spike. This is a serious acceleration. But here's where it gets even more alarming. If we zoom in and look at only the most severe, the critical vulnerabilities, that number jumped by a staggering 40.8% inside of 3 months. We went from 449 of these critical threats in January all the way up to 632 in March. We're talking about the kinds of flaws that can take down entire systems. So all of this just begs the question, right? Why is this happening? In this next section, let's explore what's actually causing this explosion of vulnerabilities. So what is the deal? What's driving this explosion in digital risk? Well, it's not just one single thing. It's really a mix of some powerful forces in both technology and just the overall software ecosystem. It really boils down to two main drivers. First, on the tech side, the automated tools we use to find bugs have gotten incredibly good. Things like fuzzing and static application security testing, or SAST, are just finding way more flaws way faster than ever. Then you have the ecosystem side. I mean, the whole world basically runs on open source software now. And with new regulations like the Software Bill of Materials, or SBOM, demanding more transparency, we're finally peeling back the layers on this massive software supply chain. And guess what? That new visibility is bringing a tidal wave of hidden vulnerabilities right to the surface. All right, so now we know why this is happening. The next logical step is to map out this digital minefield. Where are the biggest dangers actually hiding? By a pretty wide margin, the most common threat out there is cross-site scripting, or SSS. This one type of attack accounted for 13.6% of all the vulnerabilities we found in the first quarter. It's a huge risk, especially for, well, pretty much any web application out there. But what about the fastest growing threat? That honor goes to SQL injection attacks. The number of these threats surged by an incredible 119.9% in just one quarter. This is no joke because these attacks go right for the databases, the crown jewels of most organizations. So who's getting hit the hardest? When we look at the vendors, there's a really interesting story. While the big players like Linux, Microsoft, and Google had the highest total number of vulnerabilities, it was actually Mozilla that had the most critical ones. It's a perfect reminder that risk isn't just about how many flaws there are, it's about how bad they are. Look, with a threat landscape this explosive, the old way of doing things just isn't going to cut it anymore. So let's pivot and talk about the solution. What does a modern strategic cyber defense actually look like? The absolute foundation of any modern defense strategy is a technology called Common Platform Enumeration, or CPE. The easiest way to think about it is like a universal barcode for every single piece of software and hardware out there. This standard name is the key. It's how you connect a brand new vulnerability to a specific thing you actually have running in your system. And what this does is enable a totally essential automated workflow. Here's how it works. First, a new vulnerability, a CVE, is announced. Then, CPE mapping instantly links that CVE to the exact software it impacts. And finally, asset identification automatically scans your entire inventory to see if you're affected. Honestly, it's the only way to possibly keep up anymore. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It's simple, really. The old method of manually tracking and patching vulnerabilities, it's officially broken. It's just too slow. In today's world, our defense has to be data-driven and focused on the biggest risks. And that means an automated patch management system isn't just a nice-to-have anymore. It's an absolute necessity. Which, of course, brings us to the final, big question we all need to be asking. With almost 14,000 new digital threats popping up in just 90 days, is our collective defense strategy, and more importantly, your strategy, really evolving fast enough to keep up? Liking and subscribing helps us create more explainers like this one. Thank you for watching.